Hey, thanks for listening to the James Altucher Show on YouTube. You're going to hear directly from peak performers and all of my personal heroes who have defeated all odds and decided that the only way to be truly successful in this world is to do what I call choosing yourself. I upload a new video every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So subscribe to my channel and click on the bell notification now so you don't miss a thing. I have Ken Langone here, and he just wrote an excellent book, which we're going to talk about. I Love Capitalism, An American Story. And Ken, I don't want to embarrass you, but there's so many great stories. It's not a long book. I can't recommend this book highly enough. There's so many lessons about business, success, building wealth, creating value, and just dealing with people, and you interweave all of your own personal stories. People might know your name, Ken Langone, from, as you were a co-founder of Home Depot. I see your name whenever I'm driving around New York City. You can't help but see your name everywhere, and with the NYU Langone Health Centers. I was going to say, you and I have two things in common, two very important things in common.
Not hair, not hair,
not hair, but our first jobs were both paper boys.
Yep.
And we've both given over $1 billion to charity.
God bless you.
No, I mean just you, Gabe. I haven't given $1 billion.
I don't know if I've given $1 billion yet. I've given a lot.
But actually, the second thing we have in common is we've both been pitched by Bernie Madoff.
You were pitched too?
Well, I was a pitch for different reasons. This was long. We'll get to your story to say, and this was long before the fraud was exposed. Right. I was running a fund of hedge funds, and I pitched him to be an investor.
Okay.
And he pitched me to stop doing my fund and to be an employee of his. And
you didn't do it.
I didn't do it.
Thank God.
And he said, but I was very depressed afterwards. And I'll tell you why. He said, look, I have great returns. I don't know where you're putting your money, so there's reputation risk. And the last thing we need is to see Bernard Madoff Securities on the front page of the Wall Street Journal.
Holy shit. How prophetic was that?
Right. And then I left and I was depressed. Like, how am I ever going to compete in raising money against this guy who's up like a steady 12% a year? And other funds were calling me that moment saying, what is he doing? Can you get us in his fund? And then after the fraud was exposed, I called them all back and I said, you remember that call you made? And none of them remembered making that call to me.
No, that's human nature.
Yeah. So, but we'll get to your story in a second. HBO made a movie about Madoff, and you were actually an actor, played you in the movie.
Yeah, but a short guy. I understand. I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that De Niro didn't want somebody playing me who was taller than he was.
That's so funny.
He was playing Madoff, and he did a good job.
Why did they put specific? Well, we'll get to everything. I'm just curious. Why did they, out of all the stories you could say about Madoff in an hour-and-a-half movie, why did they include Madoff's pitch to you?
I haven't the slightest idea because they never called me.
They just somehow knew that story?
Yeah, I saw it. When you saw it, I saw it. I knew nothing.
Maybe it was his last big pitch for that sizable amount.
Whatever it was, they stuck it in the story.
He asked you for $500 million.
They didn't call me want a verification because it didn't happen. It was typically Hollywood license. You're full of shit, and that didn't happen that way. The way the book says it happened is how it happened.
Well, here's what I want to ask you, and I know we're going to be skipping around the book a little bit, but you talk so much, and it's such a valuable lesson about how your main successes came from investing in good people. And we'll get
not only
to
my main successes, all my successes.
All your successes, which is an extreme. People don't understand how valuable a lesson that is. Like one bad person could ruin a multi-billion-dollar company and has on many occasions. But if you have a team of good people around you, billions of value could be created.
Look, the human condition is spectacular. Nothing like it. As I said earlier, if there were no human beings on Earth, it would be a round thing with some water and dirt and nothing else. You mentioned Sam Walton and you mentioned Pete Cunningham. What happened? Here's what Kmart went bankrupt, and probably going to go out of business now. Same business that Walmart copied. It's the biggest corporation in the world today in volume. What was the difference? People. Home Depot. You had Rickel, Pergament, Channel, Somerville Lumber, Heckingers, Scotty's, all these regional chains all over.
You mentioned Homeco. You mentioned
Well, that was Pat Farah started. Pat's effectively one of the four founders. We say three, but Pat came a month or two after we started, and he was so much of the creative genius we had. Pat is, I shouldn't say was, he's alive and kicking and doing well. He owns a hamburger joint out in Lake Tahoe now. Busy Beavers or some crazy name like that. And we were four guys, and we were passionate about what we did. We liked each other very much. We had fun. We all had different skills and talents. And the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's talk about the main. I have a lot of questions about your people identifying skills, whether they're good or bad, and some of the near misses you've had. But with Madoff, is such a clear case where he obviously was an extraordinarily bad guy, but a lot of people still invested with him. When he was pitching you, it was almost like you had an instant reaction. Like, what was your gut telling you, and how did you see that? And I should mention also, you mentioned several times you're a poker player, which involves a lot of people watching.
Well, poker is as much studying people as it is studying cards. I would never want to play against Madoff because he was absolutely emotionless. Had to be. He knows he's going down when he's talking to me. And you'd have thought the sky was blue skies the rest of his life.
So what gave you, like, I couldn't tell anything one way or the other the one time I met him. What gave you kind of the red flag?
Well, let me ramble for a moment. Let me back up. If I were teaching a course in business school today, and I was told by the place I could only use one book, could only have one textbook, you won't guess what it would be. It would be the Bible, the Old and New Testament of the Bible, both. What I saw in Madoff when he pitched me that he was giving me something because he didn't have enough to go around for his other people that were around him 25 and 30 years. And in my head, I instinctively asked the question, how would I feel if I were one of those people that was an investor with him for 30 years and he's got this incredibly outstanding opportunity. This is what he's pitching to me, this fabulous opportunity, but it isn't big enough to give to all of his people. I said, I'd be kind of pissed off. I'd kind of feel like, hey, that's not right. And so in the Bible, what's the golden rule? Do unto others as you have others do unto. That's simple. It was nothing profound. It was nothing earth-shattering. It was nothing like I had a major breakthrough in biotechnology or bioscience. It was a very simple, put myself in their place shoes.
Right. So okay. So that obviously is was kind of the identifier for Madoff. What about, let's take a story like Frank Blake, who became the CEO of Home Depot after all of the, after you ran through all the founding partners, he was sort of the first non-founder to become CEO.
Right.
And the
no, Nardelli was.
Oh, right, Nardelli was.
But remember this. It's kind of sad the way it ended up with Bob. And I would say two things about Bob. The first 4 years he was at Depot, roughly the first 4 years, I could honestly say virtually everything he touched, he made better. Okay? And one of the great things he did, and Frank will confirm this, he brought Frank Blake to Home Depot. Frank had worked with him at GE, and I've asked Frank more than once, Frank, if Bob wasn't there, would you have come to Home Depot? He said, absolutely not.
So he did inspire loyalty in his
that was his whole game. That was Bob's whole game. But
he didn't inspire loyalty among the company culture, ultimately.
Well, who the hell knows what's in people's heads? What I saw at the end was a more focused, in my opinion, a more focused effort on his part as to what's in it for him, as opposed to what's right for the organization. The Army has a practice. You always feed the troops before you feed the officers, and I believe that, okay? My dad was what you would call a small person. He was a plumber with an 8th grade education. I don't mean, I think my father was the biggest thing in life, my mother and father, both of them. But in the context of how you describe people, they would be among the little people. If you measure station in life or economic status or whatever. And I suppose I'm sensitive to that because I'm of the little people. And I look at people today and I realize the ones I want to be around, the Frank Blakes of the world, and make no bones about it, I can't think of anybody that stands up to Frank as a CEO of any corporation I've ever been involved in.
And what's interesting is right after you put him as CEO, you ran into a guy in your community who had also Frank had worked for him at GE,
right?
And he said, "No, Frank, you made a bad decision."
No, he said to me, and he's a wonderful man, a very close friend of mine. And he said, Frank worked for me. He's no CEO. And I said, now, look, Frank was an unknown quantity, or an unquality, I should say. He'd never run a company before. His academic record was singular. I mean, Christ, Harvard undergraduate, Columbia Law School, clerk to Justice Stevens of the Supreme Court, head of strategy for General Electric, #2 guy in the Department of Energy. I mean, this is heavy-duty stuff. But he probably didn't know a hammer from a saw when Nardelli brought him to Depot. But there was some quality in Frank
that you saw and that other people didn't.
And I tell you what it was. It was an incredibly brilliant guy who had this enormous well of humility. Frank and I went out and had lunch with Jeff Bezos last December. And I tell people, be careful with Bezos. He's smart and he's humble. Man, that's a winning combination. A guy that no matter how gifted he is, can relate back to people not so gifted. That's a winner. That was Frank.
How did you, when you had lunch with Bezos, how did you see it in Bezos? How did you see the humility? What's an example?
Well, first of all, we go into this little boathouse he had on his property, and he goes in and he opens a refrigerator door and he brings out 3 salads that were pre-made with chicken on, and he puts it in front of us, and we sit there. And we're talking about, and it was like I was talking to a kid that had just graduated from Bucknell. And then after we had lunch, we went over and we sat in the same room over by the window, by the fireplace. And I felt like he had sucked everything out of my brain by the time I left. He was more interested in Frank and me with all he's accomplished. I mean, this guy is a winner, big time.
So,
and Frank Blake, this thing that whenever Frank would come to the board of directors, he was the head of strategy at Home Depot. Whenever Frank would come to a board meeting, if somebody interrupted what he was saying, he would immediately stop. And you could sense this intense interest in hearing every single word you had to say.
So it sounds like, one of the lessons you talk about in the book or reading in between the lines is that a strong curiosity combined with an attention to detail is a key factor of
I'm going to say a self-serving thing. I'll drive you nuts with questions. I think a fundamental characteristic of an intelligent person is an incurably curious mind. They always want to know more. They always want. Great board members that I've sat on boards of asked a lot of questions. And the board members that you could forget about sat there like bumps on a log, didn't say a goddamn word. And you have to put a mirror under their nose to see if they were alive.
Well, it seems like you've been on so many boards.
Not too many.
But certainly you've also seen a lot of bad decisions made about people. So what's a typical, what's an example bad, like what's the...
Why don't I talk about my mistakes in people?
Yes.
Okay. And there are 2 categories. One, I was fooled. Okay, I was wrong. The guy wasn't what I thought he was, and he never was. The other is that as good as the guy was, the business we were trying to do fundamentally didn't have the potential that we thought it did. I've gone down in business with good people. They tried hard. They gave it everything they had. They were well qualified. It just wasn't meant to be.
Well, or let's take the case of like Bob Nardelli, who you recruited from GE to be CEO of Home Depot. The business was a good business. Home Depot was a great business.
It still is.
Right. But he was so
Shop
focused.
Home Depot.
He was so focused on the numbers. And like you mentioned in the book, he took the low-hanging fruit that was available to increase profits, but ultimately couldn't infuse his personality into the corporate culture.
Let me back up. GE has a number of major businesses. Bob ran power systems. Healthcare was a big business. Financial services was a big business. Aircraft engines was a big business. Each of those businesses were run as a separate corporation, had its own CEO, didn't have its own board, but it had its own CEO, had its own general counsel, its own CFO, and so forth. And each one dealt with their people the way they chose. So, for example, Nardelli would throw a big Christmas party every year for the key people, a lot of them. And we made a deal with Bob in early December. And he joined us a week after Jeff was announced. Jeff announced on one Monday, and we announced the following Monday that Bob was joining Home Depot. And Bob invited me to their Christmas party, the GE Christmas party. He was leaving to come to us. And that night, one of the people that was in attendance at that party was a union representative, a high-ranking officer of the union that some of the people that worked in power systems were a member of. The glowing words he used about Bob as an adversary, I don't mean adversary, but the natural
union
strain.
Versus management.
Yeah, management versus labor. And then the number of people I saw crying that he was leaving, I said, holy shit, I got myself a winner here. If these kinds of people can be that engaged and have that passion and that emotion for this man, wow. And that Bob Nardelli was different than the Bob Nardelli, in my opinion, 5 years later.
What do you think changed in people? Because I noticed this with several of the people in the book, that at some point, initially they start off good, or you view them as, okay, this is the person I want to do business with.
I don't want to say good or bad. I'm just going to say they change.
All right, but let's take an example of either Nardelli, or here's a person who was great throughout the whole book. You guys made a ton of money together, but Arthur Blank, who was a co-founder of Home Depot, it seems like at some point, everyone gets like, they become little schoolboys for a moment. Well, like, no, you're fired as CEO. They get upset. And then they go and buy the Atlanta Falcons because they have so much money.
Well, look, Arthur is fabulous. Okay?
Yeah, and this is no criticism.
No, and a great partner. Arthur triggered the whole process when he and Bernie and I, who were the executive committee, I asked Arthur one day, I said, okay, Arthur, Bernie stepped down and you were here and here you are now. What happens if you get hit by a train? And he said, we haven't got anybody. I said, whoa. You might have a heart attack. Forget about getting hit by a train. We can't suffer that. So we agreed to hire a headhunter to go out and see who was out there that could be Arthur's deputy or Arthur's successor. At the same time that was happening, we were developing serious morale problems in the company. And so a combination of not having somebody there if something happened to Arthur and the issues that were surfacing in the company, if you go back to that period of time, 99 and 2000, Lowe's was the darling of Wall Street because they were catching us. They were comping better than us. They were open. I mean, it was just where they were in the process. We had maybe 1,800 stores and they had 700 or 800. They were growing faster than we were in terms of percentage growth and number of stores. But we had issues, and I give our board an enormous amount of credit for recognizing that we had issues and, more importantly, doing something about it. And now I'm going to name a name, and I'm going to say, here's where they blew it. General Electric. Look at the disaster General Electric is today. Where the hell was that board of directors? I say that self-servingly because Jeff pushed me off the board in 2005. I will tell you that I had no trouble challenging Jeff as a director on certain issues. And initially, I wanted to leave the GE board because there was this stress between Nardelli and Immelt. Even though Nardelli was now at Depot, Nardelli always believed he got screwed. He should have had Immelt's job. His dream job in life was to run GE, and he didn't get it. And I think there was a certain amount of Bob, okay, I'm going to show you, you guys made the wrong decision. And more than once I said, Jeff, you know, I'll give you the math. I said, I got 300,000 shares of GE. I got 15.5 million shares of Home Depot. Guess where my loyalty is? And I said, but be that as it may, I think I can do both jobs, but I don't like what's going on. There was an issue about light bulbs where we threw them out. Bob threw them out. There was another issue about the credit card. And on top of that, I had taken over as chairman of the medical center. We had an open process, and Siemens got the business, and GE lost it. I'm still on the board of GE and there was a couple of things I challenged Jeff about in private that I know didn't rest well with him. I mean, for example, and it's hard to believe because GE was recognized as one of the models of great corporate governance. But on 2 occasions, Jeff came to the board and told the board who was going to be their lead director, as opposed to the board saying, go in a room without him even in it and say, okay, who do we want to speak for us? So that was one example. And another time he put together a small group of people to help him be a better CEO. And I said to him, you know, in my opinion, you'd be better spending that time with your high potential people in the company or your customers. So, but back to boards, the Home Depot board, in my opinion, deserves a lot of credit. That board at that time, we made a tough decision. And we stood by it, and I think the company's better off because of it.
But what was interesting to me in that story in the book was that here we're dealing with all these people who have made a massive amount of money, like money for generations of their family, like Arthur or Bob Nardelli.
Arthur, Bob, Bernie, myself, Frank Blake. By the way, the guy running the company now, I swear to God, he's a carbon copy of Frank Blake. Absolute carbon, and scary. And into the bargain, one of the most competitive son of a bitches he's wonderful. Craig Menier, spectacular. In
what way? I want to get back to my earlier thing, but in what way have you seen him to be competitive?
He wants to win.
How does he do it?
Well,
how do you see it?
What we do in our company, online activity, merchandising, how we deal with our people. He's of the people, you know. So every way you look at Craig, you see a guy that, like you and I, need water and air to live. He has to win, but fair and square. And in a way, you can feel proud of yourself that you won.
Right. So it's focused on the process of the company, and where you see where you have often seen things break down with people. What I'm seeing in the book is that at some point they get distracted by the numbers, the money that they're making, or the money that they have, or the title that they have, and this sort of throws them off from. They're looking at the outcome and not the process.
Look,
well,
we all need something that, if you let it get out of control, you're going to have trouble. Egos. If you don't respect yourself, don't expect anybody else to respect you. So you got to have that much ego to feel good about yourself, because that's all you got. I look in the mirror in the morning. I looked at shaving this morning. I said, hey, pal, you're not the best guy looking out there, but that's all you got. Let's go kick it in the ass.
Yeah, you're 82, and I bet you could jog a mile.
Well, I worked out in the gym this morning for an hour. I did 35 minutes on the cross trainer, and then I did weights for 25 minutes. I did 105 crunchies on the crunch machine.
Oh my gosh!
You know, because guess what? I'm going to die. I just want to make sure I look good when I'm in the box. Okay. Come on, you got to have a good outlook on life.
But it seems like some of these people, they were good people, and then at some point they hit a wall where their egos couldn't handle something that was happening.
Either their egos or their perspective changed.
Like it became about money rather than, hey, I'm creating something of great value.
I'm 82 years old. I go to work every day. I happen to have made the most profound decision of my life when I decided I wanted to marry my wife, because she's got to be a special person to put up with my craziness, okay? If I could work 24 hours a day, if I didn't need sleep, I would work 24 hours a day. If you didn't pay me a nickel, I would work just as hard because I love what I'm doing. I'm having the time of my life. And this wonderful woman just says, that's him. I think in the book I said, a friend of mine from high school met her, and she said, you know, he's nuts. And she says, yeah, but every time we go out, I laugh. We had a good time. We still have a good time.
So before the podcast started, I told you I was going to ask this. You've been married for 63 years.
61.
61.
It'll be 62 September 15th.
You met her when she was 16.
Right.
You're 18.
If she was older, she'd have had enough sense to say, get the hell out of here, okay?
Well, you're being self-deprecating, but
no, I'm not. I'm being honest. Look, I'm a little wacky. It's just the way I am. It's okay.
Well, you are. I'm going to ask about that in a second, but I need to know. I haven't met, maybe on less than the fingers on my hand, people who have been married more than 60 years. How do you stay married for 60 years?
You fight like hell.
What do you fight about?
Mostly small stuff. You know, the first fight we had was about the thickness of the pork chops. You know,
but like, what's something where you got really angry, where you were like, I don't know if I can handle this?
When you're raising kids, that's a challenge. Okay? And thank God my kids, I mean, last night my oldest son and I went to Yankee Stadium. And when I got home, I told my wife, I said, I had more fun with Kenny tonight. It was unbelievable. He's 58 years old now. He'll be 58 in December. And you know, and I say in the book, and I mean it, I never have a phone call with any of my kids that we don't say we love each other at the end of the call. And I never go into a room when my kids are there that we don't hug and kiss each other. Okay? And so back to my wife and me, there was this fabulous well of affection for each other. There is this. Like we're talking about, I got a busy day today, and I'm going to pick her up at 7:45. She's got a board meeting of one of her charities. And we're going to go out and find a place to have a hamburger. Just a hamburger. Maybe a bowl of chicken rice soup, because I like chicken rice soup. And so it's the simple things in life. And we enjoy each other's company. We seek each other out. I think she's drop dead good looking. I really do. And she is. She's a real handsome lady. And we have the same interest in people. You know, we have the same values. God bless her. I'm a Roman Catholic, and she decided to stay a Protestant. And that was 60 years ago, and that was not, you know, the world wasn't as wide open as it is now about faith and religion. Never was an issue.
Well, it's interesting because I think faith is a strong part of your story of success.
It's my whole story.
Yeah, and well, I mean, what you notice early on in this book, a lot of people, I had this conversation yesterday with somebody, a friend of mine, said, she doesn't know anything about economics or capitalism or business, but she says, isn't successful business people, and this is a common trope, aren't successful business people usually dishonest? That's a kind of a myth about business, but a lot of people believe it.
Well, that's people, and I don't want to generalize, but those people, to me, are rationalizing their station in life and explaining away why I did better because I did something they wouldn't do. I was dishonest.
I see. So in some sense,
it's envy. Partially. I'm not saying in every case it's envy. Are there dishonest, successful people? You bet there are. Are there dishonest failures? Yes. Dishonesty isn't discriminatory.
But you're in the book. You have this blunt honesty throughout that you. It's almost like you have this sense that if you're saying to yourself, if I always speak from a core integrity, good things will happen. You're trusting this process.
I don't know if good things will happen, but I'm going to sleep better that night.
Well, like for instance, when you're working at the brokerage firm, Pressbridge. Yeah, the president wants to front run a customer trade, and you instantly walked into the head of the firm's office and say, "Yeah, I'm leaving," or "This guy has to leave."
Oh, I know. I told him. I sat there stunned.
I don't think many people would do that on Wall Street.
Let me tell you, a young man called me up last night at 10 o'clock. I got back from the baseball game. Yankees won 3-0. God damn it, they're looking good. I'm telling you, oh man, huh? You a Yankee fan?
Yeah, like when they're.
I'm telling you, with me too. I'm fair weather. I'm like you. But let me tell you right, these and they're
kids. Is that hockey or
no? They're kids. These are kids. They're nobody's over 30. These are kids. These kids have got runway. I was with Randy Levine, the president of the Yankees.
Cool.
Yeah, and I said to him, "You guys are positioned for the hell. We might win 5 World Series in the next 10 years." So, so anyway, so I get home and this friend of mine calls me up and I talked to his son, and I said, sure. So I reached out for his son, called him up, and he was talking about a business proposition and what did I think? And I says, Buffett said this. And I'm my best ideas I steal from other people, or best quotes are from other people. And Warren Buffett said, and boy, he's so right. It takes a lifetime to build a reputation, and you can lose it in 5 minutes. Nothing's more true than that. Nothing. And so, are there dishonest people that succeed? Sure, there are. Are there people that are scoundrels that are financially successful? Of course they are.
But it seems like the stories you tell where you were so bluntly honest, it's like you were almost not diplomatic at all. Like with Ross Perot, you were the reverse of being diplomatic. You were just speaking.
Let me tell you about Perot.
And by the way, this was a great meeting, which catapulted your success.
Well, it was a key to my success.
Yeah.
He was my big career break.
This was before both of you really had made that much money.
Well, he was rich.
You brought
his company was worth a lot of money.
Well, you made it worth a lot of money.
Well, I put it in the market. He made it worth a lot of money. He ran the company. And I met Perot, and I had an instantaneous like for the man. I just knew I wanted to be around him. And so in those 30 minutes he was telling me about all these other firms telling him, it was very clear he wasn't saying this is what he believed. He was saying this is what he was told. And this was the mystique of Wall Street. And I figured, what the hell? Jack Haidt said, rule number 1, get out of there in 30 minutes. And rule number 2, don't swear. Now, let me digress for a moment. You'll notice that one of the people that signed onto the book, in the back of the book, the what do they call it? Dust jacket? Is that what they call a book cover? It's Cardinal Dolan. Much of my life was in a trading room. And my beginning entry point in business and work was in construction. And in both those settings, bad words are de rigueur, okay? And I wish I didn't swear as much as I did. But when Jim Kaplan, who, by the way, my collaborator, he was spectacular. I urge anybody who's thinking of writing a book, grab Jim Kaplan. He wasn't good. He was phenomenal.
He took out all the swear words?
No, they're in there. The swear words are in there. And look, I don't think the fact that I use a few choice 4-letter words should be a measure of me as a person or my character.
Right. Well, and I think Perot
would agree. Perot told me, okay, well, what do you think of what I said? And I said, and I thought, my God, I got 30 seconds left. And I said, well, Mr. Perot, I'll see you next time and we can talk more about what I got in my mind. No, what do you mean? I said, well, Jack Haidt said I got 30 minutes and this is it. What do you think? And I thought, and I said, how could I be quick? I said, Mr. Perot, that's the biggest pile of horse shit I ever heard in my life.
And you're a small, tiny firm up against Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, the biggest guys in the country.
I was betting a ranch, except I didn't have a ranch to bet. Okay? I mean, I figured.
You flew across country, and you're willing to have them just throw you out.
Well, I'm not throwing me out. I was willing to say, hey, look, this is me, and what you just said to me is not what's happening, what's going to happen. It's simple. I'm going to decide I can put a price on the value of your company, and I'm believing in myself and my firm that I can go out and persuade people to buy your stock at that valuation. It was that simple.
So, but that style of blunt speaking almost without caring what the other person's thinking, because you're confident in your integrity and what you're saying. That won you many deals. I would say that
Put
was
me on a map.
right. And in addition to
When
obviously,
he asked me about the prospectuses, and I tried to finesse that, he bring all the deals down, all the prospectuses of the deal. I didn't have any. I hadn't done one. So I thought he'd forget he asked me. So he dropped me off at the airport. What about those prospectuses, Ken? I said, there aren't any. He looked, what do you mean? I said, I haven't done any, Ross, before you. And he like, wait a minute, Perot.
You had already had like 3 months.
A couple of months. No, about a month and a half.
I'm sure
I
James.
met him in, I think, around March of '68. And this might have been maybe even 4 weeks later. And I said, Ross, don't worry about it. Your company's so strong and so good, nobody can screw your deal up. But I said, if I do a great job for you, I'm made. So I said, I got all the risk.
So your sales technique in that approach was basically saying, not only being blunt, but saying you have skin in the game more than like just some.
I had far more than him, because you know what? This was my route to stardom, or to oblivion.
Why did you value it? You talk about how you valued it at 100 times more, ultimately 150.
The hell do I know? It was a round number.
What made you think, other than all those bigger firms, that it was worth that much? What did you see?
Well, you didn't say initially. You probably had an investor ready.
Let me tell you what I saw. I saw Ross Perot, first of all, and I was right, being one of the great businessmen of all time. I saw the way he stunk integrity and truthfulness.
How he
I said he stunk. His odor was honesty and integrity.
I get it.
Okay. And the guys around him was scary. Like he had a goddamn machine and a mold and turning these guys out. They were all alike: honest, direct, hardworking, aw shucks. I mean, I said, I've never seen anything like this in my life, ever, ever, ever. And I said, I don't give a shit what price you put on it. I can sell the stock. I can do it. It was a little bit of my bravado about me being able to pitch people on this great company. And by the way, that's what happened. But there was nothing like it. And when I met Ross and I met his family, every single thing I saw about Perot, all the way up to him running for president, only reinforced my fundamental belief. Remember Perot with a goddamn stick with a chicken's foot?
Yeah.
About who was talking about the deficit before anybody else? Who was talking about the sucking sound from Mexico? Remember the big giant sucking sound? This guy. That was 25 years ago.
So given that this was such a high stakes deal for you, you were a young guy making your name, pitching.
Now, it wasn't high stakes, because nothing from nothing is nothing.
Right, but if it worked out,
there was a lot of upside. There was a lot of upside.
Yeah, so
I tell my kids about me. I say I would rather be me with my father than you with your father. Why? Because all I could do from where my dad was in economic status could go up.
But so what do you think were the key points in such a high stakes deal for you to win? What were the key selling points that you did that Perot recognized that got you the deal over a Goldman Sachs or a Morgan Stanley?
I was going to tell him the raw truth, very simple.
And he sensed that.
The old saying, keep it simple, stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I said, Ross, this is how it works. I'm going to tell you what I can sell your stock for, and you're going to bet that I can do what I said I was going to do. That's simple. Mm-hmm. That's what we did. And of course, once he decided to give us the business, then you go through the process of putting together a prospectus and lawyers and documents and shit. And one day, I brought a bunch of lawyers, Wall Street lawyers, white shoe lawyers from Wall Street down. Yeah, so nice and proper. And, oh, so nice to meet you, Mr. Perot. And so he takes us to a barbecue joint down below his offices, right in the same complex. There was Johnny Cummings' barbecue pit. And so he's got all these lawyers around, and we're waiting with it was a cafeterias type thing. So here are these white shoe lawyers with trays, and me, I know I could see what's going on. I'm watching Perot look at him to see. He had a great sense of humor. He's wonderful. Ross, you do nothing but laugh around Ross Perot. I wish the world knew him better than as a politician, because he's truly a remarkable human being. So anyway, so we're up there, and this guy Johnny Cummings had a filthy, dirty rag that he's wiping off the top of the counter with, and looking at each of us with our trays on the little thing that you slide on. What do you have, boys? And one of the lawyers, oh, I don't know. What do you suggest? And Perot had set Johnny Cummings up, and he said, well, sir, he said, people down here, we got this great barbecued armadillo. Ain't nothing like it. You might want to like it. And he said, well, because the lawyers are all trying to please Perot because he's our client. And he said, well, I suppose I'll try it. And, well, how do you like it? What do you mean? Well, you want a rare, medium, or well done? And he said, well, what do you think? Only one way to have it, well done, because it can be a little tough. And because it was barbecue. So now we're sitting around at lunch, this round table, about 7 of us, and I'm watching Perot, and I could see he was having the time of his life watching these highly proper Brahmins, if that's what they were, all, waspy Wall Street white shoe law firms. I said, this son of a bitch is having a good time right now. I kept it in my head. Now, normally, the day of the underwriting, you have a lunch, a nice, formal lunch at one of these established then clubs in Wall Street, the Wall Street Club or the Downtown Association, one of the clubs. So we had the offering in the morning at 10 o'clock. We released the stock. The stock did very well. It came out at $16.50. I think the first trade was $23 or $24 a share. It was a phenomenal success. And he said, where are we going for lunch, Ken? I said, oh, there's a very, very exclusive club that we're going to have lunch at, the Umbrella Club. Umbrella Club? I said, yeah, Ross. I said, there's nothing like it in New York, and I think you'll enjoy it. What I had done, I'd taken a hot dog stand lady, one of those carts, and I paid her to go in the garage of our building. And I brought in the picnic table and 2 picnic benches from my backyard in the garage of this building. And so we walked down to the garage. He thinks he's going to get in a limousine and drive someplace. And there's a goddamn umbrella on the stand. And I said, Ross, welcome to the Umbrella Club. I mean, it's shit like that.
Did he
appreciate he loved it. Oh, yeah. He has a picture in his office of him and me standing with a lady under the goddamn umbrella in the garage.
So this reminds me also of so many of your stories, and I've never done this in my life. You vacation with your customers and your colleagues, and
yeah, because I love them. They're good. I don't want to be on vacation with somebody I don't like. Jesus Christ, that's torture.
Yeah, but I always figure, oh, I spend so much time with these people, vacations when...
I can't get enough of them. I just told you, if I could go without sleep, I'd do it 24 hours a day.
And I think people, there's really no shortcuts. Like, you have to get under the skin of...
Let me tell you what. Don't fake. There are people I don't like. They know I don't like them. And I don't want to be around them.
Because you have no time for it.
Not that I have no time for it. I don't want to be a fake. I don't want to be nice to somebody that I don't particularly enjoy being around. I'll be polite to them when I see them, but I'm not going to go out of my way to go out and have a pizza with them, which is what I might do with good friends of mine. Hey, let's go up to DiMaggio's in Port Washington and have a pizza and a bowl of escarole and bean soup. Do you want to die and go to heaven?
How come you're looking at me when you say people you don't
No,
like?
no, Steve, I like you.
Everyone likes Steve.
You guys have got a great smile. How can you?
So the other thing is, from early on in your career, even when you were a high school student, you had multiple ways you were making money. You were always looking for
a buck.
Yeah. And I don't think that ever stopped. Like, when you talk about Ross Perot, like, this was obviously a big deal for you, but I'm assuming at that time you were working on many deals, and that happened to be the biggest. So that's
that was the deal. I was selling brokerage. I was selling bonds and stocks to institutions. But this was me totally focused on a single company. I lived it and died it. I lived it and died it until we sold out to General Motors in '84.
But during that time, you were obviously, Home Depot was...
No, Home Depot, we started Home Depot in 78. That was 10 years after I took Ross Perot public.
Right.
And we offered Ross, remember the story? We
Yeah,
offered
you offer him
Ross,
70%.
yeah, 70% of the company. And he had a guy, who was a nice man, by the way, and he just, at that point in time, who the hell knew the formula was going to work? You know, if you'd have told me in June of 78, well, you're going to have 2,500 stores and you're going to be doing $100 billion in sales, I'd say you better see a shrink because you got terrible hallucinations.
Yeah,
I
you were raising money off of a business plan for Home Depot that had never been seen before. Basically, a big box retail chain.
The biggest variation was the amount of business we said we can do in one store. Back in 1978, the biggest hardware stores in America, there were 4 of them in Louisville, Levy's, Levy''S of Louisville, and I think they were doing about $4 million a year each. Our initial plan was $12 million a box. And the numbers didn't work at $12 million. And so Arthur was putting the projections together. And Arthur says, Bernie, it doesn't work. So Bernie says, give me the numbers. So Bernie stretched out 12 and put 16 in. So Arthur, now they work. And Arthur said, where are you going to get the 16 from? He said, we'll get it. I think probably the average Home Depot store today does something like $40 million a year in business. That was the difference. But the secret weapon always was and always will be, those kids that put the aprons on every morning. That's the secret weapon. They are the magic sauce. They're it.
Right, because every employee at Home Depot is essentially a salesperson.
Well, they're a salesperson, but also they understand the goal is not to sell something to somebody. The goal is to make somebody happy and satisfied that they came into the store. Okay? And don't sell somebody a $40 item if a $2 item can do it. I told you the story about the kid in there with the washer.
Yeah,
gave it to him.
Ultimately,
he could have sold the guy a whole faucet. The guy didn't know what the hell he was doing. Yeah, here's your faucet. Go home. And the kid said, wait a minute. That's not broke. What you got to do? And he had a little screwdriver in his pouch, and he unscrewed the brass screw and tore open a little glassine bag of assorted washers, put the right washer in, put the screw back in, and said, here, it's all done. If you want something that we don't have and we know it's in another store, in a competitor store, we'll tell you, go there. They got it. We don't have it.
Sort of reminds me actually of when Borders bookstore started. You think of it as big box, retail chain. They were sort of known versus Barnes & Noble. Their staff knew about books, could talk to you about books, but that didn't work out for them ultimately. I don't know why. I've never really followed their particular story.
Well, because it was, look, I'd rather be lucky than smart, for sure, because I ain't smart. So thank God I got some luck.
Well,
but we happen to capture a business which is fundamentally a solid business today. Still a great business. You know, I want to be in business with an honest person, but I want to be in business with an honest person in a business that has a future. The home center industry, particularly now where equity values, in other words, people now have value in their homes over what they owe on the mortgage. So they got something to protect. They got something to invest in. This is a great business. It's a fabulous business.
And do you think, like you mentioned, you were meeting with Jeff Bezos a few months ago. It's this type of business seems like one where you have to go into the store and see the equipment. And feel it.
But don't forget, we'll do about $7 billion online sales this year. You brought this up, and it's a good point. One of the greatest things to happen to Home Depot is Amazon. I don't think we would have the maniacal focus on offering our customers alternative ways to shop if Amazon wasn't out there. Amazon, well, I think a great competitor will make you a better competitor if you got the guts to hang in there, if you got the staying power, if you got the resolve, if you got the fire in the belly. We now offer our customers, you can sit on your ass in your living room buy whatever you want from us. We'll deliver it to you if you'd like, and this is our edge. Or if you want to pick it up in the store right around the corner.
So I'm curious about, you mentioned staying power, and that's so important on a business level, on a psychological and personal level. 1974, one of the worst years to maybe start a business in that economy, or a big recession was happening and continuing. Inflation was about to start. You started your private equity firm.
No, not a private equity firm.
Or venture capital.
A brokerage firm that was going to do some venture capital and look for deals.
And obviously, no one was buying stocks, so the brokerage firm...
We struggled.
Yeah.
And
you must have been scared. I mean, I read the
scared?
story.
I was terrified.
Like, would you wake up at 3 a.m, like, panicking?
Let me tell you what God has done for me. He's always made sure I got a good night's sleep.
Huh.
Okay?
What would happen when you would wake up at 3 a.m. wondering how you were going to pay the next mortgage on your house?
Never got there. I thank God, my wife and I, you talk about the marriage, we always lived within our means. We never owed anybody any money. We had a mortgage on the house. But my mortgage payment on this beautiful house was $356 a month. Okay? The house sold for, when I sold it sold for many multiples of what I paid for it. But back to, I think there needs to be a certain tension in life. One of my real close pals is Stanley Druckenmiller. Really, history will dictate he's a legendary investor. Now, I've been an investor with him for 35, 40 years. He's never had a down year, never had a losing year. This guy is so goddamn competitive. He has to win. Because he gives money away to charity like you can't believe. He's legendary for giving money. There's a great organization up the road called the Harlem Children's Zone, Promise Academy, and Harlem Children's Zone. Jeff Canada founded. Stanley is the juice in the whole thing, and Stanley, it's beyond money for Stanley. Nothing to do with money. The way you keep the score.
It's interesting because you mentioned you've been an investor with him for 40 years. Ross Perot, this is like, what, 50 years ago? Yeah, 50 years ago.
It's 50 years ago.
Yeah, because...
I called him 2 weeks ago and said, Perot, we've been hanging out with each other for 50 years.
So people, when you surround yourself with these good, honest people, it's like... You grow up together. You start with nothing. When you met Druckenmiller, he was a trader's assistant for somebody, and you sort of find the right people and you say, this is your team, and you grow up with that team, and look at all of you are billionaires.
Not all of us,
because of the power of compounding.
By the way, I don't know where they get the notion I'm a billionaire, because I don't know what I'm worth, and you know what? I know I can pay my bills. Okay, I know I have my wife, God bless, has got wonderful taste, and we got beautiful homes. And I know I don't worry about money, but I do worry about money. Don't ask me why, but every morning my first thought, if I don't get off my ass and get going, I might go broke today.
Really?
Yeah, look, a racehorse wants to run all the time.
Would you actually think you could be at risk? You feel that?
No, I have no debt. I can't be at risk because I don't owe anybody any money.
But you feel that little fear? Something.
It's a fear that starts out when I was probably 6 or 7 years old.
But you said earlier, it's like everybody needs some tension to keep going.
Yeah, I got my own tension.
This is the tension.
And look, I'm blessed. I am so blessed, and starting with my bride. Well, going back to my mother and father. These were simple, humble, hardworking, uneducated people. But they had this wonderful capacity to give their children unconditional love. My father used to be so angry with me. I wish I had a nickel every time my father would say to me, when he was pissed off at me, if I never see you again, it'll be too soon. Okay. And 5 minutes later, he's hugging me and kissing me. You know, it was with the emotion of the moment. That's a great base to have. So this bride I married, okay, and I know one thing, and I said it in the book. If I flopped, she'd still be around. You know, it doesn't get any better than that. My sons are totally, I don't want to say unimpressed, but my success doesn't matter to them. I'm dead. That's all. We sat last night at Yankee Stadium. I'm eating a hot dog, and Kenny's a vegetarian. He eats no meat. He's a runner. He's a great athlete, great shape. He's sitting there eating he's got a hot dog roll with some cheese on it instead of a hot dog in it. He's got a big bowl of salad, and he's got some fruit. And I'm having a hot dog, and anybody in America can do that. And we had the time of our life.
You mentioned that earlier that, you know, they have you as a father and you had your father as a father, and that, you know,
I had a better deal than they did.
Right. You mentioned that it was a better deal because
guess what?
Because maybe it gave you that tension, that hunger of like, I've got to do 6 jobs simultaneously while in high school, and then I'm going to figure out how to. Each stage of your life, you're figuring out a new, innovative way to make money. What's your kids' tension? How do you give them the tension?
Well, first of all, they're very independent. They have their own interest. I would say my politics are different than theirs, and no hard feelings. You know, I think they come at it in a more, would say, balanced way than I do. They're libertarians. They're not political. I'm a conservative Republican. I suppose I'm a libertarian too, but we respect each other as human beings. And certainly I am their father. That is, their mother and I got together, and they're the result of us getting together. That's the way people show up on Earth. And I don't crowd them, and they don't crowd me. And when we're together, we love each other. The other night, my son Steve and my youngest son called me up around 9:30 and just wanted to talk about nothing, and I wanted to talk about nothing, and we talked for nothing for 5 minutes, and that was it. I think the thing I would hope is, I think I'm more ordinary than I am extraordinary.
I don't know, because I think that consistent, super consistent, blunt honesty, the belief that investing in people is the only key to success, the curiosity, the humility, the diversification of success.
Be careful of my humility. No, I'm serious, because I even challenge myself sometimes. Am I really sincerely being humble, or am I playing to the crowd? Okay.
Either way, it's okay though.
Well, it is, but when I say I'm not terribly intellectually gifted, that is not an effort on my part to be falsely humble. I don't think I'm necessarily gifted intellectually. I'll kill you with energy.
Well, and also clearly you were good at spotting the sorts of trends.
I got a great nose for
businesses.
People. And where did I learn? One of the great lessons I got, how did I size people? Because what you do after a while, you slot people. You meet somebody, you say, okay, I know what he's like, because he's like that guy I knew there, and you put him in a bucket. When I was a caddy, it was interesting how I could slot somebody by walking 18 holes of golf with them, carrying their bag. Whether they were a pain in the ass, whether they were nice, whether you wanted to be with them, you know. And I say in the book, one of the things I love to do if I'm going to hire somebody, I like to take them to a restaurant and see how they treat the waiter or the busboy. Good lesson.
Yeah.
You know, you can't, you know, we take all these, again, I don't mean it in a pejorative way, we take all these little people. They're the ones that really make our lives so fun. You know, whether it's my driver, Alvaro, you know, I'm a pain in the ass. You know, I'm always got to be here, there. This guy doesn't know he's working nights or days. I told him Sunday, you got to pick somebody up Sunday night and bring him out for dinner. Okay. Now, you know, he'll drop me off at the office and say, can I go to the gym? I said, do what you want. I'm in the office all day. So he goes to the gym. You know, it's give and take. But Alvaro's a very precious. Pam Goldman, my assistant. Christ, take my eyes out of my head before you take Pam away from me.
Some people are probably afraid to give this much praise to people around them, right?
I don't know.
Do you know, like they'll be, like let's say, aforementioned Pam. What if she now says, if I'm so valuable, why don't you? I'm sure you're very generous with these people, but do you get what I'm saying? Like I've been in places.
I tell my wife.
Too, where people are afraid to be nice to you because they don't want you to feel too good about yourself.
Well, they're sick. They're sick. We'll go back to Jack Welch. Jack Welch never missed an opportunity to praise somebody or thank somebody or compliment somebody. Never once. Little note. I do the same thing. I must use, I'm not exaggerating, I bet I write 1,000 notes a year.
Yeah, handwritten notes that you send to people?
Notes. Yep. I don't use email because that's a dangerous goddamn thing. So I tell somebody in an email, call me up. I can't figure they tap my phone, so but not because I'm doing something bad, but people have a habit of misinterpreting what you write. Yeah. But somebody writes me a note, I wrote them a note back. Pam says, yeah, Ken writes thank you notes for thank you notes.
So it's a lot of time, like 1,000 thank you notes, handwritten thank you notes a year.
Yeah,
it's a lot of time, and then vacationing with
I had some
people.
guys telling me the other night that they keep my notes. I says, what the hell are you doing that for? Throw them out. There's no value after I'm gone. But look, people, every single one of us wants to feel wanted and needed and respected. And I believe this. I think the three most powerful things in life is to say, pat in the back for somebody, say something nice to them, and show your own passion and enthusiasm for what you're doing. If somebody sees you having a good time, they're going to say, maybe I ought to do that. He said, look at the goddamn good time he's having.
So pat someone on the back.
A kind word, a thoughtful gesture, and passion and enthusiasm for everything you're doing. Everything. Pam goes out and gets me half a corned beef sandwich. I'm sitting looking at that corned beef sandwich. I'm having the goddamn time of my life because I'm going to have something. And a bowl of chicken rice soup. That's what I typically have at my desk if I don't go out. And what do I love? I love meatloaf. I love pizza. I love pasta. God Christ, I could eat pasta every night.
Wait, so you're 82 years old. 82.
Right.
And a lot of nutritionists wouldn't approve of your diet.
Sure they would. I don't eat much meat.
Okay.
I don't eat much meat. I exercise.
Do you eat 3 meals a day?
I typically eat 3 meals a day. I stay away from egg yolks. I don't use any butter. If I go to an Italian restaurant, I tell them to give me the crust of the bread, the ends of the bread, and a little dish of olive oil so I can dip the bread in the olive oil, which is healthier for you than the butter. Yeah. I love a hot dog. I eat mostly egg white omelets in the morning so I don't have cholesterol. I work out religiously every day. I didn't believe it. I didn't start that till I was 75. David Novak, the guy that was chairman of Yum, I was watching Christ. He was turning into an Adonis, and I said, "What the hell are you doing?" And he said, "I had this guy that worked out with me."
So he's the owner of Burger King.
Oh, no. David Novak was he was effectively the founding guy of. They spun out the restaurants from Pepsi, and he was the guy they put in with Andy Pearson. And David was CEO and did a hell of a job. Anyway, he was looking like Adonis, and I'm saying, "What the hell are you doing?" He had this guy, so he hooked me up with the guy, Darshan, I want to say Bouger. So he lived with me for 2 weeks. It was like boot camp. Huh. He got me in a routine. He got me into what I eat, and I eat a lot of fruit. I'll eat a pound of cherries. I love cherries. I always love cherries. I like grapes. I drink in moderation, maybe 2 or 3 glasses of wine a week, red wine, and maybe 2 or 3 glasses of white wine.
Do you journal? Do you write down like a diary?
I write nothing down.
How do you remember? Like, you remember every detail of conversation from like the 1950s.
It's scary. My mind. I'll tell you a story.
I don't think I remember things as well as you
Well, I'm
do.
going to tell you a scary story. There were a series of interviews I did with radio stations in connection with a book, and one of them was up in Albany, New York. And the guy gets on the phone. I'm on my phone, and of course I'm being broadcast, and he tells me that he was raised down the street from me in Roslyn, his name. And I said, oh. Now I worked in a butcher shop, and next door to the butcher shop was a drugstore. And he said to me that his father owned the drugstore. I said, you mean Orlando Massa? Yes, that was my father. I said, you're kidding. He said, no. I said, hey, whatever happened to Roland Respati? Now, I hadn't mentioned that name in more than 60 years. Roland Respati was Orlando Massa's nephew, and he used to work in the drugstore after school. And he was my brother's age, which is 5 years older than me. And I only passingly knew Roland Respati. And he says, oh, my God, that's my cousin. I said, yeah. I said, whatever happened to him? I don't know where the hell the name came from. I got a good memory, though. I do have a fairly good memory.
Yeah, because then, I mean, you're telling stories.
But I also had some pretty good files. Let me tell you one wonderful story out of the book. This just happened. In the book, I mentioned that I joined a labor's union to work in construction on the Long Island Expressway in 1954. About 2 weeks ago, I get a letter from the president of that local telling me he'd read my book, and he noticed in the book that I belonged to the local union 1298, International Hard Carriers Union. And he went into the records, and he found my applications for membership in the union, and he sent me photocopies. So I joined in 54 for the summer, and I joined in 55 for the summer. And in the text, it was cute. He said, I'm probably the only guy that was a member of the union that became a billionaire, which is kind of, I don't know if I'm a billionaire, but I'm just saying that's what the perception was.
Well, but also, I think it was that particular union where you mentioned you were always looking for opportunities to make money, while often people in the union would wait for the union to.
My father, most union guys, trade union guys, plumbers, when they're out of work, they go to the union hall and they sit there, and a boss will call in and say, I need 3 plumbers or I need 2 electricians or whatever it was. And my father didn't do that. My father got laid off today. Work was done, John. There's no more work. We're done with the job. My father was meticulous. In fact, there's a picture in the book of a bunch of plumbers. And if you look closely, my father's got a necktie on underneath his coveralls. It's in the books. It's in the pictures.
You know, but that reminds me.
So anyway, so my dad would go home and he'd say to my mom, Angie, I'm out of work. I got to start going out looking for a job tomorrow. And he would go from construction site to, there's a lot of construction going on after World War II. And my mother would wash his coveralls, which she did every week anyway, and she'd iron them that same night. And the next morning, he'd have his lunch pail packed with a thermos in it, and his coveralls, his overalls, and he would go from job site. And let's say he got to one job site at 11 o'clock in the morning, and the boss says, "Yeah, I can use a plumber." He'd go, "Can I start now?" The guy'd say, "Sure, you can start now." And my father always managed, because 2 things. My father worked his ass off. So when somebody hired him, they knew they were going to get their money's worth. So he had a reputation among the plumbing contractors that if you hire Johnny Langone, you're going to get a good day's work. And so the union guy showed up at my home one night time complaining to my father, "You know, Johnny, it's not fair. You're always working, and we got guys down at the hall sitting there for days." And my father says, "Hold it. I got 2 kids to feed. I got a mortgage to pay. I got put bread on the table. I can't sit there and play pinochle all day long."
But again, this reminds me of.
And he says, "I pay my dues. I'm a member of the union. I'm not doing anything wrong. I go to the union meetings. I'm a good union worker. I'm loyal to the union. I'm just not going to wait. I'm going to be an entrepreneur while I'm in the union."
Well, and it reminds me of when you were in high school working for the butcher shop you just mentioned, and you forsake your salary to I forget the
No,
exact
no,
name.
that was when I was picking up cardboard from the liquor store.
Right. Okay. So and you were selling the
No,
boxes.
well, the guys told me, the guys on the garbage truck told me, I noticed how careful they were with the boxes. What the hell? I thought they just throw it in the back of the truck. We didn't have those big trucks like you got now. Most garbage trucks were like dump trucks. In other words, they just throw the garbage in that, and then they'd go to the dump and hoist it and throw it in. They became with these compactors, which are much more efficient now. Those trucks weren't around in the 40s and 50s. And I noticed these guys were breaking the boxes up, and I wouldn't doing that. Oh, we get a lot of money for that. So I went back to Lenny, and I said, Lenny Altman, good guy. I said, Lenny, got an idea. I said, how about if you don't pay me anymore? The only problem was I couldn't sell the boxes day to day. I said, if you'll let me stack the cardboard up here, I'll break the boxes up and stack the cardboard here under this. He had an overhang in the back, in the back outside of the store. He had an overhang, and it was a porch. And I said, if you let me put it there every 2 or 3 weeks, I'll move it. He said, yeah, go ahead. I said, you haven't got to pay me anything anymore. Same.
So,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think that's one thing you obviously value is hard work, and you call out people. You know, you'll talk about stories in the book, and you'll say, "Oh, so and so made a lot of money, even though he didn't do anything." You know,
yeah, and eventually you would
Lang.
distance yourself from those people,
Well,
like your first partner at your firm, or the other partners.
He was just, he didn't, well, he had a mindset. He couldn't sell stocks if the market wasn't bad. Okay? And I said to him, I said, you got kids to feed. Go home and tell them you're not going to feed them because you can't sell stocks because you don't like the market.
Again, which mirrors the story that your dad told the other union workers. It's a consistent theme. And it also reminds me of
go-getter. My old man's great expression was, the guy's a go-getter. This guy's a go-getter. That guy's a go-getter.
Well, it's like when you started at the brokerage firm and you asked for the clients where there's no business happening.
I said, look, I knew look, on the one hand, I'd like to think I'm humble. On the other hand, I'm one cocky son of a bitch, okay? I knew I could sell.
Like, would you just cold call?
Yeah, of course I'd cold call. Hell yes. Hell, one of the biggest accounts I had was a Kroger company in Cincinnati, and I stumbled onto that because I was sitting waiting to get in to see the CFO, who I didn't know, never met him before, and I noticed the gal that's the secretary is getting all these calls about the price of Kroger stock. And so I said to her, her name was Marion Alt, A-U-L-T, nice lady. And I said to her, they call you all the time for the stock. She said, I was waiting and I could not hear. Yeah, they call me all the time. So I got back to New York and I called her up and I said, how would you like it if I called you every morning and told you what Kroger stock opened at? And I called you every night. This is when the market used to open up at 10 o'clock in the morning. And it used to be 10 to 3:30. And I said, I'll call you at the end of the day and I'll tell you how much volume and what the stock closed at. Sure, I'd like that very much. I go back to when I started. We didn't have these quote machines.
Yeah.
If you wanted to know the price of a stock, you'd pick up the phone, you'd call somebody on the floor of the exchange. They would run out to the crowd where the trade was in that stock, tell you the last sale, run back, give it to you. You'd call up the customer and tell them. Typically, by the time you told them the number, it had changed. That was it. It was manual.
Yeah.
And so I started doing this every day. And at the end of the month, I said, Marion, we keep records here. How would you like a summary at the end of the month by the day, the price of the stock, it opened, what it opened every day, and what it closed at, and what the volume was? She said, oh, thank you very much. Okay. I'm doing this for about a year, making nothing. About a year later, our boss calls me up, who was a very reserved, he became a good friend of mine, wonderful man, but very reserved. And he called me up and he said, we decided we want to start buying our stock in. We'd like you to buy 3,000 shares of Kroger stock every day. You can't be in the market for the first 30 minutes, and you got to be out that's the SEC rule, you got to be out the last 30 minutes. You can't bid the stock up. In other words, you can buy it at what the bid price is, but I can't. In other words, so they couldn't influence the stock going up. And back then, let's say Kroger was selling for $40 a share. The commission would be $40 for 100 shares of stock. So if I got 3,000 shares a day, it was $1,200 a day. Do the math. Times 5 is $6,000. Times 52 weeks is $300,000. And if I'm getting paid a third, I made $100,000 just on that one account.
So it's so interesting because there's a lot of stories in the book like this where you either are willing to take no fee unless you take a success fee. You focus on success.
Yeah, I never wanted to take cash fees. I always wanted to take stocks in the company.
So it seems like the power of free is also a key to success. Or what's a different way you would phrase it? Maybe again focusing on
the willingness to show that you believe in what you're doing, and put your money where your mouth is. See, the other part of the Perot deal was he called me one day before the deal was done, and he said, "You guys on Wall Street are saying you're taking advantage of a hot market. In '68, the market was good." And I said, "Okay." I said, "So they think that I'm just opportunistic?" And he said, "Right." I said, "All right." I said, "How about if I buy 5,000 shares of stock at the price we're charging the public?" And he's quick. He said, "Well, you could sell it for a profit if it goes up." I said, "Okay, then I can't sell it for 3 years." So he said to me, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, if you go to do the stock at $16, $15 a share, that's $75,000. And I'll hold it for 3 years." Now, here's the math. We did 600,000. I think it was 600,000 shares of stock. No, yeah, I think we did 600,000 shares. The offering was 600,000 shares, and the spread, let's say $15.90 a share. The commission was about total underwriting spread was $300,000. And by the time you paid the other underwriters, you had made maybe $75,000 or $100,000. So I was willing to put up personally. Here's what happened. I was going to buy it for the firm. And when Perot said, "Okay, I'll do that," I went to the firm, and the firm said, "Oh, no, we don't want to do it." And I said, "Okay." And I felt honor bound. I'll do it myself. I don't know where the hell I was going to get $75,000 from, but I made the offer, and I was not going to back away from it. The guy, Rudy Smutney, when he heard I had done that, said, "Well, I'd like to ask him if he'll do 5,000 shares with me." And I went back to Ross, and Ross said, "No, I don't want to do it any more than that." I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, Ross, I'm going to give half to Rudy. So he'll have $2,500, I'll have $2,500. And Perot said, "Well, if you're going to do that, I'll give you another $500 each." So each got 3,000. So each of us bought 3,000 shares at $16.50 a share. And I held that stock for years. So I think people are more comfortable when your economic interests are in complete alignment.
And again, it's a kind of skin in the game.
Yeah.
Where you're being paid based almost on the size of your faith.
We founded Home Depot. I could have been. I'm a partner. I'm a co-owner, I'm a co-founder. I'll take 5% of the company, and you guys they ended up having 50, and they had to have 45, and the investors got 50%. And by the way, not only did I take the 5% as a co-founder, but I put $100,000 into the deal itself.
Right.
Of the $2 million we raised, I put 100,000 up.
So it's interesting. There's a lot of stories like that where, I mean, even in that story, Arthur says to you, you walk out of Ross Perot's office saying no to him, and
he was going to get 70%.
Right, and Arthur says, "Where are we going to get the money?" And you're like, "Don't worry, we're going to get it." And it seems like there's a lot of stories where everyone's saying to you, "Ken, where are we going to get the money?" And you're like, "Don't worry." You had an enormous faith that.
You heard the story about the rabbi?
No.
The rabbi's daughter's getting married, and she's marrying, a businessman's daughter's marrying a young rabbi. And so the wife says, Sadie says to the businessman, her husband, Jake, she says, "Our daughter's marrying a rabbi. Our daughter has lived so well, clothes, vacations. she says, how can this poor man provide for her the way we've raised her? I'll talk to him. I'll talk to him. So he goes in and he sees the kid. He sits down there, and Rabbi, he says, look, you marry my daughter. She goes, her mother and she go to Paris for the finest fashions, and she goes to all these 5-star restaurants with us, and we have drivers and so forth. And so he says, what about this? And the guy's, well, God will provide. And then so the next thing he says is, well, what about the couture in Paris? God will provide. And the 5-star guy will provide. He's okay. So he walks out in the room. The wife says, how did it go? He says, it was great. He thinks I'm God.
That's funny.
It's a cute story.
So, well, clearly the guy has to hustle by asking the father, the father-in-law.
Hold it. It's going to be hard for your listeners to say this guy's not full of shit. It should never be about the money. It should always be about the accomplishment. Okay? Yeah, I
think that's key.
I love being rich, but I'd much prefer to be remembered that I kept my word. I put my money where my mouth was, and I behaved like a gentleman when I lost.
And I don't think that's separate from being rich.
No.
I think if you didn't have those qualities...
Hey, look, the kid says to me one time, money doesn't buy happiness. I said, give poverty a shot. See how good it does.
So let's the book's titled "I Love Capitalism." I want to talk about and you allude to kind of the nuances of capitalism in that last anecdote, and I'm curious just about a couple of things. The main discussion happening in the world right now is that I'll back it up. When cars replaced horses, everybody who worked in the horse industry started working in the car industry.
Right.
But now with AI and robots or whatever replacing, the guys, stuffing the shelves at Walmart or whatever, is there going to be a void in jobs? I tend to think in general, I have sort of a big faith in innovation, but I don't really know the mathematical answer to this question.
The answer is, to me, simple. I think the opportunities for everybody to be elevated by technology are profound. The question is, and this comes back to my other passion, we better realize we got a serious crisis in public education in America. Home Depot is not going to be able to hire somebody who can't read directions on a box to help a customer figure out what they want to do. I think our public education system today in America is a disgrace. We spend more money take the 30 most developed countries on earth. We spend more money per student than any of those 30 countries. And we rank 28th out of 30th in results. If there's 100,000 jobs in New York City right now crying for somebody to fill them with a starting pay of $80,000 a year. They're technicians, they're, opportunities abound, but people need to be prepared to seize those moments. We're doing a horrible job in public education.
Do you think that's fixable? Because to take any government, it tends to wrap itself in more and more bureaucracy. Like it's very rare where the United States in its history has reduced bureaucracy. And that's what kind of causes the problems in public education.
Let me say this to you. Anybody who lives in this city of any kind of financial consequence doesn't send their children to public schools in New York City. Who goes to public schools in New York City? Minorities, poor people, people that can't afford even to send them to Catholic school or yeshiva or whatever. And this is political, and I pray to God I don't mean it that. Obama would have gone down in history as the finest president in America ever if, when he started out in 2009, to say, I want you to measure me by how much I improve public education in America. That's all I want you to measure me by. I'm going to be maniacal. I'd have called Arnie Duncan in and said, Arnie, you and I, you're going to be my Secretary of Education, and we're going to let the chips fall where they may. We're going to be agnostic. We're not going to be in the least bit interested in blame. We're going to simply look at the system and say, this is wrong and we got to fix it, and this is right, we got to strengthen it, and this we don't need, and this is what we don't have that we do need, and we're going to be absolutely objective. And when I'm done as president, I want to be able to have people say, this is where he started in public education, and this is where he ended. He blew it. He blew it.
What would be the first two things you would do if you were Secretary of Education?
I'd call the teachers' unions in and say, game's up. You're going to start doing a better job teaching these kids, or I'm going to go back to the American people and tell them it's the biggest ripoff in history. Now, there's where the politics comes in, because teachers' unions are among the most prolific supporters of politics. You take a teachers' union at $80 a month dues, that's a lot of juice.
But how would they improve?
Well, I would first of all say to the teachers, we're going to make sure you're qualified. We're going to make sure that what you're trying to teach the kids, you know. This is not nice what I'm saying, and I'm sure there's going to be a million teachers out there hating my guts, but I'm sorry. I look back at my public school education, and I fought hard not to get an education. But I think about what was the differentiator for me in my life, and that was those wonderfully passionate, dedicated teachers who really made sure they were going to do everything they could to shove down my throat knowledge. And God damn it, it worked. Now, I hear again and again and again, well, these poor kids, they don't have family structures like we used to. And I said, hold it. All you're doing is arguing my point, that because those kids don't have that, you have to do more. We can't punish the kid for that. We got to say, okay, I'm not going to let a kid starve. If I know parents aren't feeding a kid, I'm going to say, well, it's just the fact that they're not feeding him. If I don't feed the kid, he's going to starve. I'm going to give the kid the food to live.
So let's play this out, though. Assuming public education doesn't improve, and assuming, robots take more and more Home Depot jobs, what's going to happen?
Well, let's take it more light. By the way, there's a current series of ads. I love the tagline. It's America's First Jobs. I don't know if you saw the ads.
No.
Very subtle. America's First Jobs, meaning you go to work for McDonald's, you're not going to end up at McDonald's the rest of your life. That's a nice segue into work. We got to be careful. Look, the other thing I worry about is income inequality. Look at Cuba, look at Venezuela, look at Russia, look at all the countries where you have social upheaval. It's when the people at the lower end of the spectrum give up. They say, there's nothing in this for me. So when Castro shows up, or the guy from Chavez from Venezuela, and he'll say, I'm going to lead you to the promised land. And they say, you know what, give him a shot. We got to do something about income inequality. That said, I understand, don't motivate Steve Easterbrook. He runs McDonald's, and he's done a hell of a job, by the way. Don't motivate him and his people to say, we can't afford to pay $16, $17 an hour or $15 an hour. So the next thing you do, you go into a McDonald's, and there's an electronic device, like, remember the old automats?
Yeah.
You put a quarter and put a dime and get a piece of pie out. It was right there. Don't put McDonald's in a position where you motivate them to do away with the front end. Where what you're going to have is you walk in, and it's going to be the same product. It's going to be the same heat, warmth. One thing about McDonald's is this. I know when I go to a McDonald's restaurant, I know exactly what I'm going to get. And I'm never disappointed. That's good. Now, you could argue that if I go to Shake Shack, I'll get a better hamburger, or I go to Smash Burger, or whatever the hell these other Five Guys. That may well be. But I know there's a consistency to what McDonald's is going to sell me. That's why I go in there. And as long as it's not less than that, I'm happy. But don't put McDonald's or anybody else in a position where you motivate them. You incentivize them to do away with entry level, because then you're going to be in trouble. And we've got to educate these kids. We've got to help these. Look, I feel terrible for these kids. They're being cheated. kids graduating with high school diplomas and they can't read 5th grade.
But I wonder. It feels to me, and I have no idea what I'm talking about, but it feels like things don't change positively when you're relying on an overly complicated bureaucracy that, lots of things has to happen in order for significant change to occur.
Look, if there are things that business can do, the private sector can do, that the government's doing, the chances are business will do it better. Good example of VA. I think if you privatized the VA with all of the capitalistic motives that go with that, I think the quality and the cost would drop. Cost would drop dramatically, and the quality would go through the roof. Give a businessman a challenge with an opportunity to succeed, profit. That's a horrible word, but to make a profit, he'll figure it out. Look at what Bezos does. I think Facebook, you don't pay anything to get Facebook, right? Because advertisers pay for it.
Right.
But when you buy a magazine, you got to pay for the magazine, and they're still selling ads.
Do you think businesses will kind of rise to the challenge of taking on public education? Certainly there's a lot of private education.
If they're given the incentives, yes. Yes. Look, I think there's going to be one of the great revolutions coming is going to be higher education. Jack Welch's the business school he started, which is part of Strayer University, you have to have a job while you're going to his thing, or you can't enroll, and it's online. So you got the benefit of the greatest professors in the world, and technology is allowing you today. I think about how much I've learned from the professor, but if I have access to the professor, but better than that, there's a system in existence. I marvel. I sit here with my iPad. I got the whole library all over the world in my lap. I used to have to go to the New York Public Library on Saturday afternoons when I was working on my thesis for my MBA. I got to do it in my home now. I used to have to go to the office to find out about numbers or a corporate or who was on the board of the corp. It's right here. Something that thin, and Christ, it's all here. Technology's making it easier to get these things done. And we will get them done. But God damn it, turn us loose. Let us do what we do best. And if in the process of helping everybody else we make money, so what? Home Depot, you go around America today, we know we're selling products to people at a much lower price than they're going to buy at a mom and pop hardware store. And by the way, we're there. If you don't like it, bring it back. I mean, it works. And so guess what? Bernie Arthur and I, Pat Farah, the whole original investors, we made a lot of money. But look at the people we brought to the party. Here's capitalism. We have 400,000 associates at Depot today. We have 3,000 people working for the company today. 3,000. Who started out pushing carts in from the parking lot out of high school, 18 years old. That are multimillionaires. Capitalism works. God damn it, it works, and it works well.
And then you figure there's the multiplier effect. They're all going to buy houses and
well,
hire
the system
construction
works.
companies.
I don't want to use trickle down because that's been beaten up politically, but a guy working for me now gets a promotion. All of a sudden, he's taking his wife out, not to McDonald's. He's going to Applebee's or the next level up. He's spending money. He's buying a house. One of my great joys in life when I had the brokerage firm was I used to love when my salesmen had wives that were spendthrifts, because these guys would have to work their asses off that much harder to satisfy their wife's spending habits. It's okay. That's how it works. And it works for everybody.
You talk in the book about how your motivation was seeing a Bernie Sanders rally and all these young people.
Scared the hell out of me.
Why? What's his appeal? And what are people?
I think he's a phony. What's his appeal? He's a loser. Well, what the hell did Bernie... Look, I'll give him credit for one thing. He got elected to the Senate. Okay? So what? Guess what? What did he do in his life before that? He was a flop. He wasn't a great doctor or a great lawyer. By the way, I'll tell you what, I'm going to blow people's minds. there is an enormous plus, huge plus, in Donald Trump becoming president of the United States. What is it? I can think of people, Jamie Dimon, Mike Bloomberg, Howard Schultz.
Oh, the door's open to them.
We, up until Trump, we sort of had, we have a class system in politics. Andrew Cuomo, Mario Cuomo's son. This Kennedy that's in Congress now, grandson of Bobby Kennedy, brother of the president, we were creating dynasties. Yeah. I think the more people we can encourage to give politics a shot, the better the chance we have of getting the right people to do the right things. So I think Trump, to me, if I was a guy aspiring, I'd say, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. He did it. 7 o'clock election night, unless you were drunk or insane, you didn't think Trump had a goddamn chance of winning the election.
Yeah, right. No.
7 o'clock that night.
No station was predicting
that. No. 4 hours later, boy, all these media people were dying.
Yeah.
One was crying. Martha, what the hell is that, Radish? She was crying. Look. The more people we can motivate to enter politics or political service or public service, we're a better nation. I think Trump's election, Trump's victory, is going to help people to reach that conclusion that they might not have otherwise done.
So
how much more? I got. I'm still working for a goddamn living. I mean, you guys.
Well, okay. So I want to close with, you have a quote here that I think is great. You want my whole philosophy in a nutshell? I want everybody to do well. The world is a lot more fun if we're all rich instead of just some of us.
I agree with that. Look, my driver Alvaro, and I talk in the book about his apartment. I love it. When Alvaro brought Elaine and me to show me his apartment on the 16th floor of this high rise on Singer Island, I felt better than if I owned it and lived there. It worked. Go outside and look at how Alvaro's dressed today. And he takes his wife to nice restaurants, okay? And Pam Goldman. I want people to do well. I don't want to create a class system, because if you do, me 50 years ago, I'd have been on the outs.
Right.
Thank God the system was open for me.
Well, I think in your book and through the stories in the book, we see your philosophies on life, business, hard work, honesty, both in your personal relationships, your professional relationships, your charitable relationships. I think I Love Capitalism should be read by anybody in business, in entrepreneurship, in innovation, and technology. There's so many lessons here about the economy and success and wealth and hard work. It's just a great book by you, Ken Langone, co-founder of Home Depot, a place I must admit I have never shopped. I don't know a shower faucet from a bathroom faucet. So
a pox on your house. May all your faucets leak.
No, because here's the thing. I would hire.
May all your windows have drafts.
I would hire a contractor to do it for me. I wanted the contractor to do well.
If you're enlightened, you would say to the contractor, "You're going to buy everything at Home Depot. You're going to use on my house."
I have faith they will do the best thing.
No. But you look. Every once in a while, people need leadership. Okay, you exercise your leadership.
All right, that's a good point.
Them, okay. Anyway,
done.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ken.
Thanks for your kind words. And all I can tell people, we live in the greatest country on earth. This would not have happened to me except I was blessed to be born in America. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Well, and I agree with you. And again, I hope everyone listening reads the book and sees all your amazing stories. So thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening to the James Altucher Show on YouTube today. I have a really special brand new episode coming out next week. But you can watch it early. Just click on the link right here or subscribe to the channel when you click on my face. Oh, 1 second. Don't forget to click the bell. I'll see you next time.